All right, what's up, my people? It's your boy Aaron back with you another episode. And I just got one question to ask you. Have you ever got into something so bad that or done something so wrong that you thought it was no coming back from it? You have? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, we live, baby. From the block to the blessing. It's hats, hoodies and handshakes.
All right, so let's talk about it. What do you do when the thing that you done was so bad that you thought it was no coming back from it? Like there was no redeeming yourself. What do you do? And the reason I asked this question because I think it holds so many good people back. There's like this space and time where I feel as if when you've done something wrong, society holds it over you for the rest of your life, and we begin to accept what society is telling us. We begin to take, that we're never going to be nothing. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because it's crazy. I was talking to this young man at work, and he was telling me when we were talking, first of all, and I was listening to him talking. He's very educated, very intelligent, rather, and he was settling for what he thought all he was worth. He was settling for accepting the things that everybody else told him this was all you were going to be able to get. And it took me back, y'all. I mean, it took me back and it kind of hit me. And I found myself tearing up when I got back to my office a little bit because it had me thinking how many of us out there have done something that the world has deemed was super horrible and have written you off. And now you don't let your gift shine. I couldn't imagine how many of us it is because I know that I was once in that boat where I thought that because of my past, because of the mistakes I've made, I would just have to settle for whatever was going to be given to me. And a lot of times it's because that's the way the system pushes us to believe in. I remember it was the day I was coming home from prison. I was super excited. I mean, I had given all my stuff away because I was ready for this new journey, for this new path. I was about to see my mom without, having somebody telling me I can't hug her and things like that. So I was super pumped up. And I remember sitting in the cell and it's like a waiting cell. And I was in there with this guy who became one of my closest friends. His name was, they called him Folks. And we was sitting there, we was laughing, we was talking. We were both going home on the same day, which was super exciting. And this guard walks over to me. And, we're just going back and forth laughing because we were excited. We were going home. And the guard came over there and looked me square in my face and said, "I don't know why you laughing. You'll be back." And it crushed me. It crushed me in the moment, and it crushed me in the weeks and months that followed because I subconsciously began to think that was my story, that was all that I had coming. I was about to let one man's picture or thought of me dictate the rest of my life. And I remember coming home and struggling with not being able to find a job, people not hiring me because I had a felon. And I wasn't lying on my applications. I was being honest and not getting opportunities. I had went through all of the different programs, Strive, and I had came through Michigan Works. And I was doing a lot of different things and trying to do it the right way. But this thought just kept popping in my head that this guy who I didn't even know, I mean, it wasn't even one of the regular guards that, that was over us. It was whatever he was, and his picture of me or his thought process of me was beginning to shape what I was going to become. And I remember making choices and decisions and saying, you know what? If they think that about me, then I might as well do it. And I came home and I thought that I could just get back, and pick up where I left off. Maybe even though I had learned all of these cool things about Jesus and I wanted to do it the right way, I was getting so many roadblocks and I was having so many doors closed in my face that I knew that I needed to gain some income. And so I tried to go back to doing what I knew best. And I knew how to sell some drugs. I knew how to sell weed. I knew how to hustle. I knew how to, shift and shake and make things happen. And so I started contemplating on how do I do that. But I had some adversity in that because I now had a conscious of who God was and what he wanted for me. And so even in spite of trying to fight my way through and deal with, well, they think this about me, so that's just what I'm going to do. I couldn't do it with the same ease that I did before I went to prison. I now had this battling going on of, you know how they say you got an angel on one side and a devil on the one side. I felt like I kind of had that now. And in the past, it was always just easy to listen to this voice over here. I didn't even know that this voice was talking. And so now it made that process a lot harder. And I remember it was a time that kind of shifted the thinking for me. It was me and a few of my friends, and they were getting ready to go out. I didn't have no money. They had literally been looking out for me. If we were going out to the club, they were paying for me to get in. If we were eating, they were pretty much buying my food, and they were getting ready to go out, and they were like, "You can't go." And I was, because I guess, look, more context. At this time, I was in church. I was trying to find my calling. I was trying to, figure out what I wanted to do. But I also knew I needed money. And they could see that struggle in me, that battle. And they would not let me, they would not let me go. They literally set me down. I was in one of my homeboys' kitchen, and they looked at me and said, "You can't go." And I'm like, "Man, what y'all talking about? I'm a grown man. Like, you can't tell me I can't go." And they was like, "Well, let us put it to you like this. We ain't paying for you to get in." And I was just like, "Oh man." But it hit me though. And I understood what the process of that was. It wasn't necessarily the struggle that I was running from, or wasn't necessarily the fact that this guy had said something that he thought I would be, but it was the fact that God was pulling me in another direction. And sometimes the only way that you can recognize that it's God is if you can hear both voices. And so I was able to distinguish the difference. And so when we talk about redemption, God had already started this redemptive process that I didn't even know that I was in. I didn't even know I was in. And so I got my first job, and it was literally my little brother helped me get it because he was working at Old Country Buffet, and he got me in there. And I worked that job for a few months until I got fired because I lied on the application. And then I came back and said, "You know what? I'm never doing that again. I'm never going to lie on the application. If they don't want me, they just don't want me." And a few jobs later, and I'll tell you that this was the story, and this was how I knew God was working. This was probably, I had probably been home almost a year, maybe a little bit, maybe a year. All I know, I was still in the phase of, I was still on parole. And so my wife had came in and she was like, "I saw this job and I think you would be grateful and I think you should apply for it." And I'm looking at the job description and it says "no felons allowed." And so I'm like, okay, let's pray about it. Cause I mean, it clearly says what it won't or don't want rather. And so I don't want to go in there and be embarrassed, but I was like, okay, let's talk about it. And through that process, we felt like God was saying this was my next opportunity. And the job was, I was going to become a electrical technician for a hot tub company. I was just getting ready to graduate college. So maybe it was a little bit after a year. I was getting ready to graduate college the first time with my electrical and electronic technology degree. And I was going to try to figure out a way to get in that field. But we wind 4 years before that. And I'm in St. Louis, Michigan, in prison. I'm on the yard. We're walking. And I just remember one day the sun shining bright. And it just clearly showed me these houses that was across the fence. And I'm looking at these big, huge mansion houses. And I remember praying and asking God, not about the houses. I didn't think that was even in my future to have a house that big. But I was like, God, I just want to be on the same side as the gate as those houses. I don't even need a house. I just want to be free. I just want to be on that side of the gate. And I just prayed that prayer and I kept walking, like the sun kept shining and I didn't think nothing else of it. So fast forward 3 or 4 years and I'm applying for this job. I go into this interview. I'm sweating because I'm nervous. I'm feeling like God is saying this is for you, but also I know what the description said. And I sit here in front of this guy and I say, before we even get started, I said, I just want to be honest and upfront. I do have a felony. I just came home from prison, whatever it was, a year and a half, 2 years ago, whatever it was. And I said, but I believe that this job is for me. And the only reason I'm sitting here before you and I'm telling you that is because I believe what's for me is for me. And so he kind of smiled and said, okay. So he went through the interview, not seeming begrudgingly or anything like that, but he did. We went through the interview and it was a great interview. I'm telling you, if you give me an interview, I'm getting that job. That's just how I feel. You know what I mean? And we shook hands. I went outside, got in my car, started up, headed back towards the expressway. It was probably 2 minutes before he was calling me and offering me that job. And I was just like, man, and I was like, I don't understand. He was just like, you said it. If it's for you, then it's for you. He said, the thing I appreciated most is that you were honest. And it was at that moment that I felt God's grace and his presence wiping over me and just feeling like I could accomplish anything if I just was upfront and being truthful about it. And so I took the job. It was a great job, allowed me to see so much of Michigan. I mean, I used to be all the way up in the right before the UP. So, at the tip of the glove, I would have to go. Sometimes my trips would take 4 hours just to get to a job. But I had a company car, a company credit card. I had all these things that they were not given to a felon, and I had a felony still at that time. And God was just showing me how much he loved me and his grace and his mercy and how redemption could work. And, we still get in those spaces to where we kind of question, we see something better or like, well, why can't that kind of happen and whatever. But it was just one trip. It was nice outside. It was a summertime. It's sunny. And I get a call to go to St. Louis, Michigan. Now, at this time, I was not putting two and two together that I was headed to St. Louis, Michigan. I spent time in St. Louis, Michigan. My biggest bulk of my prison sentence was did in St. Louis, Michigan. I didn't think nothing about it. I just got the assignment. It's 2.5, 3 hours away from where I was at. Put my music on, jumped on the highway, and I was off and ready to go. And so by the time I get there, I'm kind of tired. I don't like driving on the highway like that. The owner of the house wasn't there. They had left permission and instructions on how to get in. And I went through like this little patio area. So it was connected to their house, but it wasn't their house. So I'm still not thinking anything. So I'm getting there and I'm looking at this house and it's huge. I mean, it's huge. And I'm like, man, they're allowing me to go through their house. Like, I wonder if they knew, would they still let me? And so I'm like, okay, whatever. The instructions say go through and the hot tub was in the backyard. Guys, listen, I'm not even kidding when I say this. I go through, I open the last door, and when I open it, I step out and the sun is beaming on me. And the first thing I see is this prison that I spent 3.5 years in. And I was just in awe of what God was doing. And you talk about the story of redemption. I don't deserve that. I didn't deserve that. I didn't do anything special. The only thing I did was trusted God. And I made a promise and say, listen, if I don't never get a job again, I won't never lie. Because I just didn't like that feeling. But I was standing here in this $1 million house, looking at this hot tub that I was about to repair and looking across this yard, across this fence to the very tracks that I used to walk around. And it was at that moment that God said, you ain't seen nothing yet. And he was showing me that where you started from, God can bring it full circle. And the very thing that I asked for, years prior, God had fulfilled. And what it showed me was I could begin to ask God for whatever it is that I wanted, and I can expect for him to give it to me. Now, what I also understand now as I'm maturing is that it don't always look the way I asked for it. I think he did that thing for me just to show me who he is. And so now when I walk into spaces, I don't walk in with my head down. I don't walk in with the past being able to control who I am or the decisions that I make. I walk in now with the full understanding that anything I ask my God for, not only can he do, but he is willing to do it. And that to me is just dope. I mean, the see the grace and the mercy. And I think the best part is, as I looked at that as the covering, and that's why I rock my hoodie, because God be covering me. And I don't even always understand from what and how. And so to see that moment come full circle was just huge. And I think for me to acknowledge I deserve to be in that prison. I deserve to be there. What I did, I deserve to be in that prison. And I can accept that. And I accepted whatever came with that. But what God showed me was that if you can accept and acknowledge the things you've done to put you where you are today, he can take that and use it. And so now when I tell people that going to prison was the best thing that happened to me, I get people all the time that look at me like I'm crazy, but it literally was. It allowed me to see God for who he is and to recognize that there are so many more pieces to the puzzle that God was putting together. And the things that he's shown me, the things that he's even done up until this point are still relatively small to what he can do. And so redemption is not just a one-man story. This is a story for you. If you've done something and you feel like, I can never get over this. My past was always going to haunt me. Your past is going to always be a part of who you are, but it doesn't have to dictate where you're going. And God is big enough to take the things you've done. And I want to just tell you, the things you've done, the things you've been a part of, God has seen those things before. Like those things are nothing special. God is seeing those things before. And guess what? Just like he did the people in the Bible, the Moseses and the Davids and all of those people, he can take those mistakes and turn them around for the good of those around you. Now, my only hope is to be able to encourage somebody. I want to encourage somebody. Maybe that somebody is you, that you don't have to be defined by the path you've taken. You don't. That doesn't define us. We are who God says we are. And that to me will always be supreme over what anything else. And it doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter what your friends say or your significant other. If they're not encouraging you, if they're not speaking life into you, none of those things matter. I want to be able to tell you for sure and for certain that if you can get those voices out of your head, if you can not let those dictate the journeys and the choices you make, but you can let what God is saying. I mean, just look at it. Like, we're made in his image and in his likeness. How can we lose? I mean, the whole, oh man, y'all gonna get me excited in here, and I'm gonna start jumping up and shouting or something, because the beautiful thing about redemption is God has mapped out a plan for all of us if we're willing to accept it. And it doesn't matter what you've done. He can take that thing and turn it all the way around. So I just want to encourage you today that if you don't take anything else from this, redemption is real. And the choices you made yesterday made you the person you are today. But the decisions you make today prepare you for the person you will be tomorrow. And at any given time in your life, you can change who your tomorrow person is. And that's a fact. So I'm going to leave y'all with that. Just remember, hey, if you rocking with me, man, and want to be a part of this journey, please like, subscribe, and let's do this thing together. Share it. Just get it out, because the only thing I want from this is to be able to encourage somebody, because I've looked at the things that God has allowed me to do and the blessing he's allowed me to play in other people's lives. And the more people we get to understand that redemption is real and come out, we get the benefit from the gift that they got. So that's, if you want to look at it as a way of like bringing out other gifts, look at it that way. Share this with somebody that might be struggling and going through with some of their past mistakes, and just tell them your past don't got to define you. God has already done that. Live in that space. Peace.
Bun at the top. It's transformation. Hats, hoodies. Let them handshakes. Let's do it.